Step 2. Let's see if we get this thing working. I guess you guys are it tonight. Other people aren't brave enough to come out in the hurricane.
We live in a mobile home, so we're not very bright.
What's your safety? I'm without power, so.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Where do you?
I
meant to get the
In
stuff.
Greenville, like,
Man, I don't want to run out. I don't want to like be without power.
I'd be in a hurry to turn my light on.
We live right in the northern part of the county, and when I left home,
Where do you live?
off of Hudson Road.
Why are you guys sitting in the back, way back there?
Because we're gonna be creating trouble.
I thought you'd have a lot more people.
Oh,
I see your message.
We'll wait a couple minutes because we might have some other people coming in.
It usually is. Yeah, it's usually, they're having to get more chairs, yeah.
What the heck's going on with this thing?
Just roll the batteries around a little bit.
Yeah, I know.
So are these screens different from, say, a TV screen?
What the heck?
This isn't a TV, this is just.
I think it could be a TV. I think it could be a TV.
Oh, you're irritating me. What is wrong with this thing? What's this? One of these batteries out and see if there's a battery issue.
Sometimes
Just
that
saying,
helps.
knowing Ray.
Yeah, exactly.
Is there another way to turn it on?
I'm hoping.
We'll do that over here. Yay. Hey, Jerry.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Try the old way, then the remote won't work. That's smart.
Yippee.
That's the problem. We all get used to all of the new.
Everything's so technologically advanced that it's more complicated.
Well, we don't even think, oh, there's
Yeah.
probably a button right on it to.
That's right.
Rich needs a screen that big for his desktop.
So does anyone, before we get started tonight, now I'm not going to, Michelle, can you grab a sign-in sheet?
Sure, yeah.
I think I know everyone, but my name's Rich. I'm the executive director here. I'm a person in long-term recovery. For me, it's been 16 years. I'm also a licensed counselor, and I have a degree in a master's degree in social psychology. I have an MBA with a concentration in healthcare management, certified in all these different things, and I just say that just so you sort of know who's talking to you.
This is my mother-in-law.
Okay, good to meet you.
Mary Ellen.
So I kind of come at it from both this sort of theoretical point of view, but also this lived point of view. I'm also a family member who's gone through some things, and tonight the objective is to give you guys whatever information you need that makes it a little clearer what's going on. Addiction is baffling. It's hard to figure out. It makes no sense to anyone. The person's behavior makes no sense to anyone. It's a roller coaster, a process, if you will. It's not one event. It's not a trip to rehab. It's not a trip to detox. It's ups and downs, which, now the good news is if a person keeps trying and they stick to it, they tend to get better. The bad news is about 9 out of 10 people quit trying. Do you guys get that? You get the little conundrum there? If you stay with it, you're likely to get better, but the problem is you're going to be compelled to not stay with it for all kinds of different reasons. I get bored. These meetings suck. There's too many left-handed people at these meetings. There's too many right-handed people at these meetings. Not enough blue-eyed people. they told me too much about God, they didn't tell me enough about God. There's all kinds of different reasons that people come up with to not go. And so the key part of it is can you persevere and can you stick to this? For the families, it's even more difficult because you don't have any direct control over that part of the process. You're not the one who actually has to, you can't go to a meeting for your loved one. That would be wonderful if you could. You can't go to rehab for your loved one. I keep saying there should be rehab for families. Should be able to, do an intervention, put you guys on a plane, fly you off to rehab where no one's allowed to talk to you for 10 days and you get a massage and acupuncture, good food every day. You don't have to worry about anything other than going to a group, go to a lecture, meet with your therapist every once in a while. That's your life when you're in rehab. You guys would probably find that refreshing. You would probably be like, this is kind of cool. I'm going to sign up for a longer stay.
Yeah, really.
But unfortunately, you have no control over that part of the process, and I think that's probably one of the most frustrating things about it. Yes?
I will say my daughter went into rehab yesterday,
I heard.
and,
Saturday, I thought.
well, Saturday we were here lining up places, and she stuck it out one more night and then went the next day. But I'll tell you, today, it feels like I'm on my own cruise. It's
Oh, yeah.
the burden and the stress.
Yes. Do you guys hear that?
For a
So,
while.
I'm so glad you said that, because a lot of times that's kind of how the experience is for the families when a person goes to rehab or a person goes to recovery residence, or even when they go to jail. Like, you'll hear people talk about when my son or my daughter went to jail, that was actually the first time I slept in 6 months, in a year. Because what? You know where they are. You know what they're up to. It's predictable. It may not be pleasant to be in jail, but it's predictable. And if they're in Greenville County Detention Center, that's not pleasant, but it's also not Rikers Island.
Yeah.
So you kind of like, this is better than out there running around, putting yourself in jeopardy, that kind of thing.
And you're not hiding the car keys and stashing cash and jewelry at home.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So it's
Yeah.
kind of-
Yeah, because you know what it is? There's a phrase for that. There's a phrase for that, guys. It's called the 36-hour day. And it was actually an article written, may even became a book. And the idea was living with somebody in addiction is like living a 36-hour day. You pack 36 hours worth of activities into a 24-hour day because you have a full-time job of all the stuff that you just described. Now and in the meantime, it's not like your life stops. It's not like, hey, you don't have to go to work, Michelle, because you're going to be working on your son's recovery. You don't have to go to work, Michelle, because you're trying to find a rehab for your son. You're doing it in between life, and it can become completely exhausting and completely overwhelming. Then you get them into rehab, and there's this deep breath. But then, and I'm not here to burst your bubble, 30 days has gone like that. 28 days has gone like that. So you have to sort of start preparing for what happens after rehab. And how do I do this life and deal with this issue that's never, first of all, it sticks with us forever. It gets much, much better, but it's really never resolved. It's sort of always there, at least for a while. Maybe after a year it gets more predictable. After 2 years it gets more predictable. Statistics say that the relapse rate goes way down after 5 years, but 5 years is a heck of a roller coaster to ride. Does anyone have anything going on that they need to talk about tonight? Any issues that they want? Yes, Jerry.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yes, my daughter has really just gone off the deep end. She was knocking me around and stuff on Friday night. I'm all bruised up.
So she assaulted you.
Yes, and I had to kick her off of me.
Yeah.
It was in my bedroom, and my phone froze up, so I was trying to call somebody. And finally, I got through to my son, and he was out somewhere in Duncan, and he said, "But Mom, I can't come right away."
Yeah.
But he did, and he called the cops on his way.
Okay.
So the cops took her, but see, she was trying to say that I did
Right.
everything. So
That you
it's
assaulted her?
Yes, and I told the cops about it. My granddaughter was there, but she did not witness any of this. She was in another room where we had gates up and stuff, and
Yeah.
she didn't see any of it. I had a caseworker call me on Saturday then, saying that, she needed to have somewhere to go. So I told them, no, she can't come here.
Yeah.
But somehow, they said, well, we can't release her till she has somewhere to go. And I said, well, that's not my problem.
Right.
She's 24 years old.
Can't release her from jail, you mean, or?
No, from the hospital.
Oh, she was, okay.
They took her to the hospital because I should have pressed charges.
I see what you're
I
saying.
didn't do it because I figured if they were gonna take her, they would evaluate her. She was intoxicated, I thought she was on other stuff, but didn't show up.
Yeah.
But then someone told me it takes 10 hours for, like, Klonopin and stuff to show up, so I don't know if that's true. They didn't keep her,
Okay.
and so she got back out, told her she couldn't come back to the house. My mother-in-law arrived yesterday, and we went out to get something to eat, and we come back, and there she is sitting
Wow.
against the garage door, totally out of it, holding
Yeah.
a cigarette, head hanging down.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. Do I have her committed because she mentally,
I think-
she has witnessed?
So what do you do when you have somebody who's completely out of control and who's out of control in a violent, aggressive, assaultive way, clearly a danger to herself and to other people? So we've talked about it here before. Can you do a commitment? Yes, you can do a commitment.
Wow.
So what you have to do is you have to go to what part of the area do you live in?
I
I'm
live
sorry.
right over by Peytonwood Hospital. Like
So you would go to
off of
Greenville
Hudson,
Mental Health, and you literally file commitment papers. You walk in the door and say, I need to file commitment papers.
so where's Greenville Mental?
Greenville Mental Health, I'd have to look the address up.
Oh,
But if you Google Greenville Mental Health,
It's by
And-
Greenville Memorial.
Excuse me.
what's that?
It's by Greenville Memorial, it's in that same area.
It's in the same area as Greenville Memorial Hospital.
Off of Grove?
I'll get you the address.
Yeah, we can get you the exact address.
Because I get so confused with all, because there's hospitals right up the street from me, so.
But you're not looking for the hospital. That's not what you're looking for. You're looking for, it's the county mental health center.
So you said Greenville Mental Health?
Yes.
Okay.
And there's two different ways that you can commit somebody in South Carolina. One is for a mental health issue. That's if they're trying to commit suicide or they're psychotic and they're homicidal. But you can also commit somebody for out of control substance use, where they're a danger to themselves or to other people. And you have the data that you just described. You have the evidence that you just described. You have to write it down. They give it.
Cops have it too.
That's what
You're going to have to do this. This
Okay.
won't happen through the police.
we found that out.
Yeah. So and then what happens is you give it to you turn it back into the mental health. They issue a warrant and they come pick her up and take her for an evaluation. She winds up in the emergency room, and then they evaluate her. This is where it gets tricky. With any kind of commitment process, that independent evaluation can go the wrong way. If she presents under control, if she presents as, I'm okay, my mom did this to me, then they may not keep her. They may not keep her. If
That's
she's,
what I'm worried. I mean, Rich,
Well,
you
but here's
know
the-
how she
yeah.
lied to you.
but here's the thing. This is where, and this is where you have to try to step back, and everybody in the room, think about this for your own situations. You have to step back and you have to say, what are the cards that are dealt me? It is not an ideal system. Like, it would be better if there was a better way to do this, but I'm telling you, there's no other way to do it. There is no. I've had people who've gone in a situation like that and have gotten committed. I've had people who've gone and haven't gotten committed. Sometimes it depends on who the person is that evaluates them. Maybe if they pick her up and she's under the influence, now that's a game changer. She's probably going to wind up in. If they pick her up and she's sober, she's more likely to be able to negotiate that stuff.
Yeah.
And anybody is. Yes.
This is all new to me, and that's what I was thinking this morning even.
after a night's sleep, she must have gotten up and taken pills because she's a little loose and she goes, I am not.
So you want to write down that she's continuously to use this stuff. She's putting herself in jeopardy
It's her
by using this stuff.
prescriptions.
It's okay.
Okay.
It's okay.
But it's gotta be something else.
You have no choice, Jerry. I mean, your choice is to live with what you're living with, or do this
I
in.
can't, Dave is away in
Perfect
Poland,
solution.
working a job. I can't do this on my own.
The other option would be to, so that's one option. That's probably the best option you have. The second thing would be that you try calling the police again. You just try calling the police again, and this time you kind of like try to get insistent on, I want to press charges, you know, that kind of deal.
Press charges from
If she
before,
gets,
or
and I would even call and see if you can press charges from before.
I
She-
just.
Can you do that?
I just texted someone,
Yeah.
and they said that you can, but the key is getting the right officer. You know, if you get
You mean
one
you can
that
press charges
understands
afterward?
this, you can press charges afterwards, but
Well, see, here's the deal. And this is why I played it cool that night. My son was standing there and we're trying, you know, we're like, what do we do? What do we do? Because when the officer took her outside and he was talking to her, I could hear them talking, but I couldn't hear what they were saying. But my son heard it and he was furious because she was using my mom's abusive, my mom, you know, physically, mentally, emotionally abuses me, and I'm like, my son opened the door, he's like, you are not gonna go.
But
and say
they're
that."
very used to that.
they are so.
Well,
that-
and the
that's-
officer said.
Yeah, that's
Go inside.
very common.
So then he came in and he said, but, see, she was taken downtown. Now, she was in a car accident in December, and she told me that she had a hairline fracture in her neck. Well, she never wore anything for it or anything, but when she was on top of me in my bedroom, I did this to get her off, and she
So let me give you some advice, and I want everyone to apply this to everything. When you're in a situation like this, and it's kind of like what the topic we're going to talk about. You have to take a step back, and you have to try to put everything else off to the side. All your previous experiences, you have to go into problem-solving mode, and you have to start saying to your and you have to, like, literally, and it's very hard to do. It's a very hard thing to do because you're in a very emotional situation, and it's your child, or it's your husband, or whatever it may be. And you have to try to get analytical about it. I know it sounds crass because this is your daughter, but you have to start thinking strategically. What exactly can I do now? And what can I try to do to get her under control? Let's define under control is in a rehab, in a hospital, or in jail. Let's just, for sake of argument, say that's because she's not going to get under control in your living room.
No.
She's not going to get under control in her bedroom. Now, what were you going to say, Joni, about a possible way to?
I would,
It depends on the officer.
like, is it county or city? Not that it matters, but just wondering,
I'm in county.
in the county.
It was the.
So it's a sheriff.
It was a sheriff that came, but what I was saying is she said
Oh,
she's
yeah.
gonna press charges on me.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, if I press charges and they're gonna come take me off and I'm gonna sit
They're
in
not
jail.
going to take you off.
No.
They're not going to take you off.
But if you
They are
said
not going to
property-
take you off. It's not, how do I want to say this? I know her and I know you, and it's not going to take a rocket scientist to figure out what's going on here. They're not going to, they are not going to take,
Very crafty.
we-
I couldn't believe it.
they're not, I will bet my left arm that you will not be the one that gets charges in this situation. You will not be the one that gets charges. They may not press charges on her. Do you follow me? They may say there's nothing we can do, but they're not going to buy the idea that you were beating her up, which is what she'd have to say.
See, that's what the caseworker that called that morning was saying, you know, we need to release her. And I said, no, she's not coming here. She was violent with me. And she said, well, she does have, she was brought to the hospital, and she does have, she's trying to say that I choked her out, and I did not. And if you look at her neck, she's got scratch marks, because at one point I was like digging my fingers nails in her to get her off.
Then maybe you can't press charges at this time on what happened before. Maybe you have to try to find, is she residing at your house?
She left today somewhere, or maybe around 12:30, and has not been.
Because the other option you could do is you could do like a notice to quit, which is essentially you saying you can't be at my house, and then you could press charges if she's in your house. Now, this isn't anything that's going to get taken care of today, because it takes like 4 days for the notice to quit. Here's how you do a notice to quit. You go to the magistrate,
Okay, yeah.
and they will issue, and you just basically say she has to go, it's my house, I own it, that kind of thing. And then they will serve her official notice that she has to get out. And then when she's there, if she doesn't leave, then it becomes a legal matter. You're trying to figure out ways to work the system.
See, she's trying to tell me, you can't kick me out.
Well, that's how you have to do it.
And I'm like, yes, I can. And she said no, which I know, because the one cop told my son and I, you can go and get an eviction notice. It's a 30-day eviction notice. But then he did say something about a 10-day.
That's a 4-day thing, notice to quit. Go to the magistrate. Yeah, people in here have done it. Yes, ma'am.
What was I gonna say? Oh. Help me, Lord, what was I gonna say? Oh, when someone is intoxicated, they don't, do they remember?
Maybe not. Maybe not. And
Yeah,
so
she might not remember all that.
So when someone's intoxicated, yeah, absolutely, that could be the
Right?
case.
You don't remember?
Your problem is, you know, and I know a little bit about what you dealt with because you shared it with us in the past, and I met with her. It's the problem with this is a little bit is that this didn't just start today. This goes way beyond even this incident, and it's going to happen again. That's really what we're working with here. If we were half confident that she was going to get it together and you weren't going to see this again, then maybe you have a different option. You guys follow me on that? Mm-hmm. Like at a certain point, when we talk about boundaries, we're talking about how do you protect yourself. There's one idea of like, what do I do to get my loved one help, or what do I do to kind of control my loved one and get them to where they need to be, get somebody into rehab, for example. But there's also a reality of what this does to people, and you have to protect yourself and your family. And many times the only way to do that is through the legal system. And yes.
So do you have custody of your?
No. Her father, the ex-husband, has custody, and in the divorce, he said that she can see the child as long as she's supervised by my husband and I. So, because she went to the hospital and said all this, now DSS is involved, and they came out twice, and I told them everything, and I said, am I not going to see my granddaughter anymore? And she said, that's already determined through the divorce, and if you're on, good terms with your son-in-law, then you will see her. If he says, and I talked to his mom, and she said, Josh does not have a problem with you and Dave seeing her, but he does not want her coming back if Victoria's in your house.
Which makes sense, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
It's
Go ahead,
getting her
ma'am.
out.
That he beat her.
I'm a little puzzled about this notice to quit last 4 days. And
It
then-
doesn't last 4 days. It takes 4 days to get served.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm thinking, and then that's.
And then she has to leave.
And stay out for an extended
Oh, yeah,
period of
forever.
time? Oh, I'm sorry. I
Yes,
just missed
it
that.
takes 4 days to process.
Oh, because I'm going.
Yeah.
4 days.
Yeah, no, it's a way of like getting a person out of your house is
And
essentially what it
I
is.
just need to say one more thing, and then I'll shut up.
No, it's all right.
Last night, she left again after she was in the rain and the sad thing, then came back again. And she came in the house. And I looked at Jerry and I said, we're letting her win. She's
Yeah,
in now.
yeah,
The night was dreadful,
yeah.
and we let her sleep in the den. And this morning she woke up, and she's very bold, and in she was. And then because Jerry wouldn't take her to the Verizon store, she left again, walking
In this
in this weather.
And
Yeah.
I did say, I'll give you a ride to Verizon, because she wanted to go get a phone turned on that she got from the neighbor. And I said, I'll give you a ride, it's really not safe for you to be out there walking. She said, I don't want anything from you. And she left. So it's been, I'm thinking, she was arrested,
Oh, Friday.
no, Friday she went to the hospital. Saturday night, she was arrested for intoxication, public intoxication.
Public intoxication. So you start to come down to, what's it feel like to do this stuff? Can I do this stuff, and will this stuff even work? Do you guys get that? It's like, what do I do? Am I of the frame of mind that I can do this? And then there's also the reality of, does it actually even matter? Does her getting taken to the hospital for an eval make a difference? That's the part you don't have any control over.
Right.
What you have control over is trying to file these commitment papers, and also I would try to do something with this notice to quit, so that if the commitment papers don't work, you start to get to this situation where she has to leave your house. That'll also help you in the case with your granddaughter, because now you're saying, Victoria's not allowed to be here. Do you follow me? Now you're saying, like, she can't be here. And you're not going to be able to reason with her, because she is not of a state of mind where she can be reasoned with. I think it sounds like it's even beyond like counseling or anything like that. There's this process called behavioral containment. Behavioral containment means we're so out of control when we're in active addiction. You can't talk to us, you can't reason with us, counselor doesn't work, therapist doesn't work, a psychiatrist doesn't work. We're so out of control that the only thing you can do is put us in a bubble. Put us in a building and lock our asses down. Do you follow me?
I think she's there.
Because we are so out of control that nothing else will matter. And remember what that comes down to. We've gone over this before, but I'll just do it one more time quickly, because I think it's important to know exactly what's going on with a person in this situation. You guys are trying to make sense of an absolutely nonsensical situation. She's speaking French and you're speaking English. Let's see here.
Another question for you.
Yes.
Does she have a key, or no? She does not.
No,
But I'm afraid she's gonna be there again in the rain when we get back there. And what do you?
No, she doesn't have a key. I was afraid that maybe she did. I wasn't sure, but I know she doesn't.
What if she is there? What if she is there? What would be your plan from there? What would you do if you got there and she was there?
Well, we're both
I don't have a
mothers.
plan. I don't
We're
know.
both mothers.
I would say get out of my house.
You would?
Yeah.
Okay.
And she's going to say, no, I'm not going to go anywhere. And as soon as she becomes threatening, as soon as she becomes escalated, I will call the police again. As soon as she starts cussing at you and yelling at you, I would call the police
She
again.
didn't last night. She just left. But then she came knocking at the door.
Do you get where I'm coming from?
Yes.
You know, like you're
So
trying.
what do I tell when I call the police?
My daughter is threatening me. And this is assuming that she would go there. I'm making
What
it.
if she doesn't?
If
And
she
I don't
doesn't,
want her in
if
the
she
house?
doesn't, you got to go through this notice to quit situation.
She may not
If she-
do it because I'm there.
If she doesn't do that, you can't. You can't. Technically, she's right when she says you can't throw me out. You got to go through this process to get her out.
She said, you let me live here, so you can't kick me out.
Right.
I'm
So
like,
she and she's kind of right about that. But you can work through
That's
that.
what you get for being nice.
You can change that.
And Mitch?
Yes.
I spoke with you over the weekend, and something I didn't mention, the weather, having concern for her out in this weather. We survive that shit all the time. She'll be okay. I know
She's going to take chances anyway.
It's raining and windy.
Yeah, she's going to take chances big
Okay.
time anyway.
Okay.
And I didn't give you that reassurance, but I do
No,
want to tell
you know what? I didn't even think of it, but it was my son, my poor son. God love him, because, you know, Dave's away working, and so I called him. I said, okay, I need to talk to you for a second. I pulled up, and she's sitting here, and she's totally out of it. I mean, she can't even look at you, she's so out of it.
Yeah.
And he said, well, just tell her she can't come in. And then, you know, he said, tell her she can sleep in the garage, or
See,
walk her
inch
in
by
the...
inch.
So listen, remember, we hear this all the time about the person in addiction. You hear it all the time. They know how to work the system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
We
she
know
said-
how to work. What I'm telling you is the family has got to learn how to work the system.
That's what I wanna know.
If you got to call a police officer and cry, call a police officer and cry.
That's
You follow me?
And use
Like-
words like afraid.
I'm afraid. I'm fearful for my life.
My mother-in-law is
I'm fearful.
hysterical.
You got like the conversations that you have where you pull the police officer aside and you say, you know, and this is what I always tell families, and I would, and again, when I say I would do this, I don't know if I would do this. Understand, I'm saying that this is theoretical. This is incredibly difficult what we're asking you to do. You get, I mean, I don't judge anybody who is unable to do this because it's hard. It's your child. But the idea would be to say to the police officer, and when you leave, as soon as she starts that again, I'm calling you back. And you know what? If I have to call 40 times tonight, I'm going to keep calling because I'm afraid she's going to kill me. I'm afraid she's going to kill me.
She said that on
Yeah,
Friday night. She
and
kept,
and
look,
and-
she was, I mean, she kept saying, I'm gonna kill you, you effing bitch. And
yeah,
I'm like,
you could get it, Jerry. You could get it done based on that. You can get her committed, or at least taken in for an eval, based on the fact that she said, "I'm going to kill you, you effing," and then she attacked you. You have got more than enough evidence to get her picked up. You could get her picked up, quite frankly, on a mental health issue.
well, that's what I'm
Yeah, you know.
trying, how, I mean, even last night when she took off and she was so out of it, and
Well, that would be substance abuse. That would be what you want to put down on that form. When you guys are filling these commitment forms out, you want to put down, like, why do you think the person's a danger to themselves? It's what you just said right there. You write that down. She's getting so high, and she's incoherent. She doesn't even know where she is, and she's walking on the roads in the middle of a hurricane. You know, and you have more than enough
that's what
evidence.
she told me. She told me so many different stories, and they were all over the place, but she said, I was picked up because I was walking in the middle of Haywood Road.
So, look, this is what you got going on. This is a healthy brain. Remember, we talked about this. This is a normally functioning brain. This is a brain. This says alcohol. It could be any substance. Chronic exposure to the substance literally makes your brain, let's just say in very, very straightforward terms, malfunction. Makes a rational person irrational. It's a mental illness at that point. And you're trying, and what happens is, because we love our loved ones in these situations, we try to reason with them. Come on, what are you doing? You wouldn't do that. Don't go out there. Don't walk down the road in the middle of a hurricane. And in their mind, all they're thinking is, I just want to go get high. You're crazy. You're the one who's crazy. You're the one who assaulted me. To your point, does she even remember what really happened? The most honest thing is she could probably pass a lie detector saying that my mom did it to me. Because we create an alternative reality. We create an alternative reality. Yes.
I just wanted to say a few, I say praises. First of all, you're both adorable. The blessing is that your mother-in-law is here. That's powerful.
Yeah.
And
Oh, are you kidding? I called up and got the plane out the next day when I talked to her.
I mean, that's love.
Well,
And-
you do.
Well, no, I mean, in love sometimes,
It doesn't always work this way.
right, so that's, I mean, that's.
It doesn't always work this way.
It's
So,
powerful. And
well,
you're-
let's go through some of this, because I think some of this is actually going to help you guys, because it's essentially, you're right in the middle of the boundary crisis, and it's not even a boundary crisis, it's a crisis. It's a straight up DEFCON 5, the stuff is hitting the fan situation. Nothing theoretical going on here. And again, remember, you are allowed to protect yourself. Of course you want to help your daughter. Of course you want to help your son. Of course you want to try to help whoever's in need. But you that doesn't mean that you get people laying their hands on you. That doesn't mean that you get people calling you terrible names. That doesn't mean that you get people stealing your stuff, making your life unlivable. And that's where it comes down. Boundaries, this isn't about controlling her or controlling him. Do you guys follow me? It's not about, you're not trying to run anyone's life. You're literally trying to say, this is not okay with me. You're not allowed in my house under these conditions. That's important to understand. Like a lot of times, because when we're in addiction, what we'll tell you is to stay out of my business. You're trying to run my life. It's none of your business. I'm an adult. I'll go wherever the heck I want. That has nothing to do with it. That's not what's up. Yeah, you're right. I'm not trying to run your life, but I'm not going to be treated this way. Obviously, physical assault is an extreme example of that, but I would make an argument it happens way before that. I would make an argument that it happens is, when you start compromising your own values, maybe putting up with some stuff that maybe you wouldn't. And we all go through that. We all go through a version of that. And boundaries, and this is to your point on having a team and having somebody else here. It's important that whoever's involved with the person is on the same page, that we're going to start. So it would not work, for example, if Jerry went home and her mother-in-law, what's your name now?
Mary Ellen.
Mary Ellen went home and told her two different things. Do you follow me?
Oh, yeah.
Like if Jerry went home and said, you have to get your stuff and get out, and then Mary Ellen said, no, it's okay, honey, you can stay. That'll never work. Whatever you guys decide to do on the car ride home, you should talk to each other. Here's exactly what we're going to say when we get home.
I will say that we're close on that. We
Yeah.
so much.
That's a huge advantage.
Amen.
That's because that's really one of the biggest problems we run into. Because you can imagine if you have the person getting different messages from different people, it's very hard to get anything done.
That might be her husband.
Well,
If he was home, I was
Easy-
gonna ask
easier.
that question. If
My
he was
son.
home, what would
It
have
would-
happened
if-
last night?
it may not have gone
If
that
he
far.
were- If he were home, that would not have happened on Friday night with well, I don't know.
Yeah.
I really don't know, because that has gone on before with her, and he actually had put her up against the wall to kind of settle her down, and I had to tell him, so we kind of have this.
And
going
I
on,
think,
but-
and I know him, I think, he would probably maybe not be quite as quick to say we got to do this, but I feel like he would probably back you up on that.
Oh, I do too.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
He's been a group. We've met. I think he would back you up on that. And what I mean by back you up on that, you need the person to back you up on the bottom line kind of decision that you're making. So mom and dad have to be on the same page that we're going to file this notice to quit. Mom and dad have to be on the same page that we're going to set this boundary. Hey, if you keep drinking in the house, you're going to have to leave. If you're not on the same page, there's no reason to even have the conversation. It's just, you're just creating a fight for no reason to have a fight. Yes?
She went over to the next door neighbors, an older lady, and drank a half bottle of vodka. A liter bottle.
Yeah.
A handle.
A handle.
That's what happened Friday night.
Yeah.
The next door neighbor had her garage open, and her son is living there. It was his vodka in their fridge in the garage. She went into their garage, opened up the fridge, stole the vodka, and when I came back 2 hours later with my granddaughter, she was belligerent. But then they told me when they called the next morning, she didn't have any drugs in her system, and her alcohol level was not. But okay, the bottle was a handle, and there was probably 2/3 of a bottle left.
So she didn't drink a lot. Well, she drank a lot, but she didn't drink
No,
the whole.
I meant when she stole it.
Oh, I got you. Oh,
She drank.
she drank the rest of it.
Yes.
Okay.
That's
That's a lot.
yeah, she was-
That's very odd that she wouldn't have alcohol in her system.
It's like a
That's
bad
what I
test.
said.
Unless she spilled
Yeah.
all of it.
Yeah.
And
Unless they didn't. Unless I don't know. Maybe they didn't. That
She
doesn't
said
make
they
any
did-
sense.
They did the test at 1:00 in the morning, so she probably started drinking it around 7 or so.
Yeah.
When I got home at 9, she was staggering all over.
Yeah. So the control you have is whether or not she can live at your house. Like when you look at these situations, you say like, do I actually have any influence over the situation? Is there anything I can do? In this case, you have you have one of the main cards is the person's living at your house. That's not always the case. Sometimes people will be in group and they're dealing with somebody who's not even living with them. And that's where you can kind of start to play that card. It's all the stuff we just talked about. But it can also be, sometimes it's more emotional leverage that you have or emotional influence. People in addiction in a really weird way will maintain contact with their family members because they want to be told that they're okay. We know that we're not okay. We know we're spinning out, but we'll still want to maintain a connection. And many times family members will have to say things like, I can't talk to you like this. I can't speak to you when you're in this state. And that'll also influence the person toward different behaviors. But in this case, when a person's in your home and they're out of control, it really comes down to, and I have to say this, this is a really honest thing I'm about to tell you. Understand that the system, those of us who work in this field and those of us who are, running organizations, we know that there's no good answer for this. Do you follow me? I'm just willing to stand up here and tell you that the only solution you have for somebody who's this out of control is the police. And I know that that's not the best case scenario. That's not even the best case scenario for the police. They don't want to be involved in this. They didn't sign up to be drug and alcohol counselors. They didn't sign up to be mental health counselors. But it's just, this is the darn reality of what we're dealing with. There is no mobile crisis team that can come out and talk to her and calm her down and help try to get her into a rehab. There is no crisis stabilization unit, although I've heard there's going to be one, but there is no place you can just take her and drop her off until she calms down or sobers up. You follow me? There's nothing. You got to work the system that you got. Work the system that you got. Yes.
When you go to the ER though, doesn't the ER call you guys or no? Like when you take your loved one to the ER?
No, they don't. They don't call us right now. In the future, they will be calling us. Starting in October, we will be on call for overdoses. But we wouldn't be on call for drunk belligerents.
Okay.
Because we're starting off on a pilot project just for overdoses.
Okay.
But we would get
All
called.
ERs, or is it only GHS?
It's Greenville Memorial. Greenville Memorial, the main campus. We will be in very interesting situations there, and there will be a lot of stuff that we can't even affect because we have no jurisdiction over the person. So if I get called and Joni's in the ER and she had overdosed and she's being belligerent and stuff, I can't take her. Do you follow me? So, so we would, yeah, exactly. We would be more of a verbal support. We would be more like trying to talk her down, calm her down. But I'll tell you what, talking to a drunk person is one of the hardest things in the world to do. You cannot talk to somebody who is majorly under the influence. They don't have the ability to even have a rational thought. A lot of folks get completely belligerent and out of control and aggressive when they're under the influence of alcohol. And she would do that with me, or would do that with you.
I was going to ask that.
Yeah, they'll do it with
have
not with somebody who's drunk, because the problem is when I'm talking to them,
even you.
even the way that I go about it, they're not hearing me.
Okay.
They're not hearing what I'm saying. They're not processing what I'm saying. Under the best of circumstances, they're kind of like a happy drunk and they're laughing while I'm talking. Under the worst of circumstances, they're cussing me out. That kind of thing. I'll tell you this is the truth. Like, I've worked in this field for 17 years. I've worked with deep end mental health issues, and I can talk to somebody who's floridly psychotic, like somebody who's schizophrenic and off their medication, and get more progress than I can with a drunk person.
Wow.
I want to tell you that. As true as I'm standing here, I can talk somebody who has schizophrenia down. I can connect with them on a level, even if they're in an active delusion. But I can't talk to a drunk person.
Wow.
And I don't think any of us can, because you're so, isn't that amazing? And that's the one drug that's legal. The legal drug in America is probably the hardest drug to deal with. Yes?
In Jerry's case, would she be better off calling the police or EMT?
What's EMT?
I think the police, right? I think the police. I think the police, because it sounds like if a person is getting aggressive, if a person is getting out of control, and you just had this incident, I would be like, anything that started to go on that was threatening, I would call the police. You know, if a person is overdosing, if a person is suicidal, if a person is completely like in danger physically, I would say call EMS. You know,
This morning, she threatened suicide.
you guys have all kinds of good stuff. I mean, all kinds of bad stuff to get her into committed. You have you guys have 5 or 6 different things that you could get her committed. Do you guys got that? Like she has said, please put me in the psych hospital.
My mother-in-law said, I really think that she's,
Well, for biscuit,
No.
totally.
no.
Offer biscuit. You got, that's a great term.
I know.
I have never heard that before. I am all over that. I am all over that.
She's from New Jersey, that's.
I have been off my biscuit many
like
times.
that.
I've been off my biscuit when I was in addiction. I've been off my biscuit.
That was my dear grandmother's expression.
It's a very good expression.
She was a little lady. The other thing that she said, if someone was around that was drinking, she would say, oh dear, he's certainly out of the way.
Oh, that's good too. It's a very good explanation. It's kind of like very descriptive of what's happening with a person whenever they're in that state.
Soft little voice.
Yeah. Yes.
I can share with them, I mean, I had the advantage that there was a warrant out for my daughter. This goes back a couple of years. And the sheriff, I called the sheriff's office and they said, well, we're so backed up, we can't do this for a couple of days. I took my daughter to the store and told her, you know, there's a warrant out, you should turn yourself in. She said, I'm gonna commit suicide, and ran off. I didn't think she was, but I went home, called 911, said my daughter threatened suicide, and they had somebody there in about 10 minutes to pick them up.
Really?
So use that card.
Use that card.
Okay.
Use that card.
You know why I don't use it? For the simple fact that she's said it so many times that I'm just like.
But listen,
okay.
you got to remember what your objective here is. Your objective is not. It's not whether or not she's actually suicidal. Your objective is to get her into a place where she can be stabilized enough that somebody can have a sane conversation with her. You know what I mean? So even if you don't believe it, it's what you just said. You know,
Okay.
even if you don't believe it, it's like, look, she said it, man. And now I'm going to call, and they're going to come out, and they're going to do their thing, especially if she's under
So
the.
call the cops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Call 911. My daughter's threatened
Okay.
suicide.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, see, I was saying, my mother-in-law thinks that she has multiple personalities.
Now, I mean, obviously that would be something you'd have to figure out. I don't think that's what's going on, guys. I have to emphasize again what's going on in a person's brain when they have this happening. And this is for everyone in the room, not just for your situation. What happens is that you know your brain, the processing in your brain, and your ability to think rationally, and your ability to be normal goes away because of the malfunctioning around dopamine and the drive to get the drug. Like everything else, it's literally Jekyll and Hyde, and it happens to all of us in one shape or form when we're in that state. It gets worse. It can be worse with different people, but I mean, it was like that for me. I mean, I'm a very sane person. I'm a very normal guy, but when I was doing my thing, I had a different version of reality. I had multiple personalities, is what it looked like. You know, I literally, you know. You could not reason with me. I didn't see the world the way the world was. I would have told you 2 + 2 = 8. And if you'd have given me enough time, I would have explained to you how it actually does. And you probably would have believed me. I was a different type of addict. I didn't behave like that. I wasn't like an aggressive, give me what I want guy. I was going to charm my way through what I wanted. I was very, very... I was more sophisticated.
Sophisticated drug.
Yeah, so I was very sophisticated as a drug addict. I was just, and then I had 2 techniques. One was to be very, very sophisticated. The second technique was to just be relentless with my lies. I would just say them over and over and over again and over and over and over again until, like, you know what? You know, you just believe me or I wear you down. One of the two.
wearing us down.
Yes, that's because when you're in that moment and you have this chemical has taken over your life, you have no ability to think. This part of our brain, our frontal cortex, is what allows us to have rational thought. It's why we can sit and Joni and I can have an exchange and we can have a conversation and she can tell me some things and maybe I don't agree with them, but I can process them. Whenever I'm in addiction, that's gone and my midbrain takes over, my emotional brain, my instinctual brain. Using drugs becomes equivalent to getting a hold of food and water and getting a breath. Getting a breath, you know, if you ever been holding your breath or you've been underwater too long, you know, you're desperate to get that breath. And everything else in your way doesn't matter. So you're in a panic state and you're going after this stuff. And that's what's going on. And then when you try to have a reasonable conversation, you literally become the enemy.
Yeah.
You are now standing between me and my substance. And what is my deal is to destroy you to get to what I need. To destroy you or to manipulate you or to, you know, do whatever I need to do to go and go ahead and get a hold of what I need to get a hold of. And there's no way to talk a person down from that. I've told this story before. I was, I don't know, man. I don't know what year this was or whatever. It was before the pain pill thing, but like I would dabble in cocaine. Now I was going to run for political office, but I probably never can now that I said that out loud. And that was something that my wife was just like, I mean, it was like vehemently opposed to. Like, this is a deal breaker in our relationship. And I was at a wedding one night, and the guy was there, and he had it, and we would go back to the bathroom and do it, and we would come back out, and my wife would be like, where are you going all the time? And so I went back to the bathroom, and then she came in the men's room and kicked the stall door open, and we were in there, and we were doing cocaine. And she was like, and she like ran out, and I followed her out. Well, actually, like, she ran out, and I looked at the guys, and I'm like, what am I going to do now? And they were like, just deny it. And I was like, you guys are geniuses. So I did.
Oh my God.
So I got in the car, and I said, you know, you didn't see what you thought you saw. Yeah, they were doing it, but I wasn't. I was in there trying to stop them. And she said,
3 guys in a stall?
yeah, 3 guys in the stall. Yeah. Yep. And so, and I, you know,
You could run
and I started to say things like, what are you doing coming in the men's room anyway? What kind of woman comes in the men's room? You know, this is what I'm saying. And we were in the city of Philadelphia, and we were going, we lived in the Poconos, which is probably about an hour and a half northeast of Philly. So that drive to the Poconos, by the time we got home, I had either worn her down or she was buying what I was selling. It was, yep.
You wore her down.
You were.
I wore her down. I think I wore her down where she was literally like, okay, whatever. I charmed her. Yep. And I just literally would not. Here's what I think looking back on that. I totally created that reality in my head where I actually believed it.
You did.
I believed what I was telling her because I was in this survival zone. What was the survival zone? The survival zone was, if I admit what just happened, I have to admit I have a problem, and then I can no longer do this stuff. So that's what's going through my brain, and my brain's like, you can't do that. You can't do that. And so the more I say this out loud, this outrageous statement, crazy statement, the more I say it out loud, the more I believe it. The more I say it out loud, the more I believe it. And the next thing you know, I got you believing it. And when you don't believe it, now what happens if I can't convince you? Well, for some people, they resort to intimidation to get what they want at that point. That's where the bullying will come in. It'll move from like manipulation to intimidation. But remember, like, you're desperate to protect your addiction. You're desperate to protect that drug, so you take it to the next level. And the problem is she's already there. She's already there. She's not even going to come up with sophisticated excuses. It's not, yes, ma'am.
I have a question about when a person drinks, sometimes they don't remember. Does that apply to a person using substance?
It can, depending on what the substance is. It's a great question. So, like, when we drink, it's not uncommon for people to drink too much and have a blackout and not remember things. There are certain drugs that will definitely bring that out. Xanax is one drug that does that. Xanax is notorious for that. Xanax you'll forget great long periods of time. I would imagine any drug taking too much of it that you can have that experience.
So then in your.
Opioids don't tend to not do that. Opioids tend to not do that. Benzos do.
So in your experience that you just talked about, you were not high in, I don't know what word to use, but you remember.
I remember to this day. I remember we talked about it. My wife and I just talked about it. I recorded a podcast with my wife. I have a podcast called The Recovery Cartel, and I interviewed my wife on there
It's
about.
wonderful.
And in between,
She's
like
adorable.
when we talked about that. We both remember it very well. You know, she tried to run me over in the parking lot. That's what she tried to.
Wait, I have a question.
Yes.
Did she really try to run you over?
Well, that's what I
You
say.
see,
That's my version
I
of
was
events.
trying to pull out the other
Yeah.
night, and Victoria was hanging onto the side of the car. And
No,
just
I had to
pulled
get, in
off.
order to get in
She
the
said,
car, I had to pull some like Starsky and Hutch ninja move because she was not waiting for me, and she was my only ride from like Philadelphia to the Poconos. So I literally had to like roll over the back of the car and like I did this like if you'd had it on videotape, it was probably pretty cool. And I opened up the back door because what I remember was I rode in the back the whole way home because that's like what I jumped in. So she drove and I rode in the back like she was chauffeuring me because she wouldn't stop to like let me get up front, you know, like she was just like, she just drove and I just talked. You didn't see what you thought you saw. That's not what was going on. Yeah, those guys. And I mean, I went with it. Dad, that dude has a problem. I'm worried about him, man. I was in there. I was trying to talk him out. You know, he wouldn't even listen to me. I can't believe that guy must be in deep. I'm worried about him. And she's like, yes.
So did your wife, okay, so now you're talking about it in 2017. So did your wife say if like you wore her down, or did she truly believe what you were saying? Or
She said, in her words, I made her think she was crazy.
Wait,
In her words, I made her think she was crazy. She
Okay,
started
so
to. I actually wore her downward to the point where she started to question reality.
okay,
Like in other words, did I see what I just think I saw?
okay.
And one of the issues we had to work through in our relationship, and I think she talked about this on the podcast, was once I came clean and said I'm an addict, I have this problem. One of the hard things for her to work through was she was very angry because all those things that I had talked her out of, she now realized I wasn't crazy, I was right.
Praise God.
And it was like, and I used to joke with the guys I went to meetings with, I used to say like, look man, I'm telling you, if I'm not here tomorrow night, come over to my house and check in the backyard in a shallow grave because I'm sure this woman's going to kill me in my sleep. You know, like she hated me. She was so angry when she came to the realization that, because this is what's so diabolical about addiction. This is what's so bad about addiction. Not only do we put you through the worry that we put you through, we tell you that you're nuts. We make you question your own reality. So you got this double barrel problem. You got like just a straight up worry about your loved one, coupled with, you know, this, it's not like cancer where you're watching it happen and the person is appreciative of your help and, you know, appreciative of your efforts to try to get them better. We're resentful of your efforts. And we tell you you're crazy for your efforts. That's why addiction is so hard to address as a society. And that's why it's really not treated as a disease, because we earned it. You know, those of us in addiction, we earn the reputation because of how outrageous our behavior is.
Wait, go back. Say that again?
Addiction, I don't believe addiction is actually treated as a disease in America.
Okay.
It's not really treated that way. So in other words, 80% of people in jail are in there for some drug-related issue, and a large percentage of them should be in a treatment center. If you really thought it was a disease, they would be in a treatment center.
Okay.
Society says it's a disease, but they don't treat it like it's a disease.
And they don't treat it like a disease because of the behavior?
Because our behavior is so outrageous.
Ah.
You know, when you look at another disease, look at a disease like cancer. You don't, like somebody has cancer, and I walk up to them and I say, you're diagnosed with cancer. We're going to put you on this plane and fly you to the Mayo Clinic, world-class treatment. They say, thank you. You come to me and you say, you're diagnosed with opioid addiction. It's a deadly disease. We're going to fly you on this plane to Panama, world-class treatment. And I say, F you, get out of my face.
Got it. Okay.
I'm going to go steal your PlayStation in your car and go give it to the dope man and get high again. Do you see?
Yeah.
Like, it just doesn't feel right. it doesn't make sense to people, and that's why our country has handled it the way it has. It makes all kinds of sense, right?
Yeah, it does.
It just is what it is because we kind of earn it. And that's why my wife you were not going to tell her this was a disease. When she first started doing this, when I first started doing recovery, and she was told it's a disease, and she was talking to like counselors and sponsors and stuff, she was like, no. It was way later when she came into that understanding. Months later, whenever I finally said it's statistically impossible for every problem in our relationship to be my fault. It's in the universe of possibilities, that cannot be it. I can't be wrong in every situation. Some of this is because, the way you're handling this situation. Then she started to get information. And then she started to learn about what it was. And then obviously I do what I do professionally, so she had no choice but to ride along with this. But
she's amazing.
But it really came hard. I'm telling you, it was not, I don't know if anyone here can relate to that, but it's very hard when you're going through this with your loved one to accept the idea that this is a disease. Sometimes it is because they're so negative. It's such a negative experience.
Okay, so another question then. I'm going to use your wife, but not necessarily your wife. Why was she saying no, it's not a disease? Or
because
why do people say? I think I said it myself. I still don't.
Because I believe it's because of the behavior. Because it doesn't feel like a disease. It doesn't. It feels like a behavior.
Okay.
And sometimes behavior is very normal.
Yeah.
You said you were high functioning.
Yeah.
So sometimes.
Oh, great point.
You're very normal.
Right.
And then when you're not
And then
normal,
how do you
don't
That
have
is
to
a great
accept
point
that.
because it's not like this something that's on me all the time. So during the day when I'm at work from 9 to 5, I'm very high functioning. Everybody loves me. Do you follow me? So how's this disease? What happened to that disease whenever you were at work? No, this isn't a disease. This is you deciding you want to go get high. That's how most people think, and it really is how most people think, guys. There's a lot of surveys out there to support that. When they survey Americans in general, not people who come to support groups. Obviously, people who come to support groups have some education, but just Joe Schmo on the street, it's like 65-70% say no, it's not a disease, it's a moral failing. And that's because of all this. That's because of this behavior you guys just ran into. It's because of my behavior when I was out there.
But didn't you say when you were a high functioning that even though you were functioning, you were working, anytime you
You were always thinking about it.
Yes, about where you could get and.
I believe the hallmark symptom of addiction is called preoccupation. You never aren't thinking about it. So I would be at work, I'd be talking to Joni about the project we were on. In the back of my mind, I would be literally thinking about how many pills I have, when am I going to run out, where am I going to get these, what doctor I went and saw last, what pharmacy I went to last time, who else I know that might have a prescription, how else I can get this. Do you follow me? It was always there. It was like white noise in the back of my mind that never went away. Yeah. Yep. Yes, ma'am.
So that obsession or the white noise in the back of your head would cause tons of anxiety.
Incredible anxiety, incredible discomfort until I went and got it. That would relieve it.
Okay.
Then I would kind of calm down for a minute until I had to start again, because now I'm running out again. I remember, guys, I was addicted to prescription pain pills, and I was at the front end of the opioid epidemic, and this was pre-heroin and stuff. This heroin wasn't mainstream like it is now. I never did heroin; it was never around. I probably would have, to tell you the truth. So my deal was pills, and I would get a prescription of 90 pills, and when I would get these 90 pills, I would have momentary relief. Once I got to 90, I'd be like, oh. And then I'd take the first handful. I'd take 5 right away.
At one time?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I would not take these as prescribed. I was reading the bottle wrong. I thought it said 4 every 1 hour.
And did you know that maybe you were behaving poorly?
I couldn't, I wasn't even thinking about that. I got to explain to you, I wasn't even considering my behavior. There was no pros and cons. There was no self-evaluation. It was literally on autopilot. Go get these things. Go get these things. Go get these things. Oh, you have them. And I would be relieved. I'd take that first handful, and then I would immediately go back into panic mode, because I would start doing the math, and I would realize I'm going to run out of these.
Oh my
I'm going to run out of these in a week.
God.
And so it was torture.
Yeah.
It was torture. It was absolute torture. And then I'm constantly checking them, and I would like be checking for these pills, and I'd be like looking at them, and there'd be like 7 left, and I'd be like, how can I make these last? Because I think I can get another prescription in like 2 weeks, but how can I? And I'm doing all this crazy like algorithms in my brain. I'll take half of one now and a quarter of one then, and then I'd take them all, and I'd look in this bottle obsessively. I would look, I'd shake it, and I'd count them. I'd pour them out, and I'd count them, and I'd put them back in, and I'd look, and I'd put it back in my brief. I always kept it in a briefcase, a locked briefcase that only I had the combination to. My wife to this day probably doesn't know that. Like that, she never found my pills. I kept them in this locked briefcase that was for work only, that had the super secret system, that was running the world. And do not touch that very, very important briefcase.
Did she think you were acting odd?
Oh, she thought I was a complete lunatic, and I was. And I never slept, never ever slept. Always up, always like stressed out, always like completely 100% just out of my mind. And then I would go out into the world and I would tighten it up. I would like go out into the world and I would put on my mask and I would hunker down. And guys, I did a lot of like, I was pretty involved in the world when I was in addiction. Like one of the things that I'm most amazed of is like my last year of addiction, like I played in like 5, here's what I would do. My deal was to also just stay involved in stuff and stay out of the house so she wouldn't find out what was going on. So for me, it was adult basketball leagues. I'm a pretty good athlete. And I played on like 5 adult basketball leagues in the middle of maintaining this addiction.
You must have been very
And
slender.
must have been what?
Very slender.
I was. Very slender, yes. I still am. But
No, I'm just thinking, at one point too, you all must have been slender to be 3 in a cubicle in the bathroom. I can't get over that.
no, one of the dude was pretty hefty, to tell you the truth. Yeah, he was the one with it.
Wait a minute.
Cocaine definitely did not suppress his appetite, so to speak. So, but you guys, that part of trying to understand it, that part of trying to understand the compulsion, the obsessive thinking, it's very, very hard to understand unless you've kind of been through that. But I really want to try to convey how absolutely bizarre that is. And you don't even know you're in that world until you come out of that world. Yep.
I used to smoke, so I can relate to it on
Yeah.
that level.
Yeah.
You're wondering when you can have your next cigarette.
Well, that's why you get into this situation around detox, for example, and people are like, what can you get done in 5 to 7 days of a detox? The one thing that you can get done in 5 to 7 days of a detox is you have a half decent shot of having a normal conversation with the person because they get it out of their system. If I can get it out of my system long enough that you can actually sit and talk to me, and I can actually focus on what you're saying and hear what you're saying, then maybe I can make some decisions to go get help. Then maybe, but it's hard to get the person who's spinning out to that get help part without some way of clearing their mind with it. Yes?
I'm curious too, I don't know when it was, but Tori went and was getting methadone.
Yes.
Now, to me, if you're trying to get clean, why are you taking another thing?
That's been helpful to people. It's called harm reduction, and the idea is that that's better than being in active addiction, stealing, being violent, and stuff like that. If you do that along with what's called psychosocial support, the outcomes can be pretty good. And what I mean by psychosocial support is groups and individual counseling. If people do the whole program, what you find is the results are completely different than if they just take this medicine and don't do anything.
Yeah, that always puzzled me. 'Cause
Yeah.
I can remember,
It's a very controversial subject.
to me it would be controversial.
It's very controversial to everyone. You bring that up with 100 drug and alcohol professionals, you're liable to get 100 different.
Because years ago, alcoholics would go and they'd dry out.
Yeah.
And the torture of drying out would make them, many of them, think twice before ever going on it again. But to me, you're going.
Well, they don't dry out like that anymore either, even for alcohol.
I know they don't.
Like
you get another little helper.
you get, yeah, you get.
I mean, I
We
think-
would, I would support that. I support them getting the help. I support people being detoxed medically. I do. Because you also remember there's another part to this, not only the comfort level, and it's not even really about the comfort level, it's dangerous. It's physically, you can die from that.
Oh.
Yeah,
if you
yeah,
don't-
you can seize up and you can die. So that's really that's why they do the medicine.
All right.
They don't do the medicine just to make people comfortable. They do the medicine because if you don't do the medicine, you can have a seizure and die.
Wow.
That's what that's all about.
I'm
That's for
learning
two- that's for
so
two-
much tonight.
That's from two different substances. One is alcohol will do that to you, and then the other thing is benzodiazepines. Like if you've taken way too much Xanax, it can happen to you then. It won't happen to you if you're coming off of opioids. So you're going to feel like you're going to die, but you're not. Yes?
When you were explaining your mom, you know, how you were getting, there was only 7 pills left, blah, 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 blah. Would you say that you were living in fear or living out of fear?
It was like living in a
Fear?
constant state of, it was in a constant state of anxiety and fear.
Fear,
Yeah.
okay.
I can remember before I knew anything about addiction, before I knew anything about recovery, having conscious thoughts of there aren't enough pills in this world. Like, there are not enough pills. I can remember having thoughts of, it wasn't active suicidal thoughts like I want to kill myself, but I distinctly remember being in Pittsburgh. I was at the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center at this time and working there and doing pretty well at work. But the bus line for the city of Pittsburgh, just buses flying by all the time, and I remember thinking, I'm going to step in front of one of those buses. Mm-hmm. Something will be different if I do that. Something will be different. Those were the type of thoughts that were going through my mind, and it was kind of like you're walking around in this just ever-present state of darkness. It's like a movie. If you've ever watched a movie that's just like dark all the time, like a Batman movie or something, it's never okay. Like there's no such thing as an okay day. Even if you have all the drugs, this is what I'm telling you. Even if you have the drugs in your hand, it's still not okay. That changed way long time ago. Do you follow me? Like there was a period of time when it was fun, and then it switched over relatively quick with these pain pills. It switched over relatively quick. Well, there was nothing fun going on. This was a full-time job, man. And how am I going to get it? And where am I going to get it? And how am I going to get it? And where am I going to get it? And I remember, so for me, I didn't know how to buy it from the street. To tell you the truth, you really weren't buying it from the street back then, guys. That was at the beginning of the opioid epidemic, and you didn't need to go to the street. You could get it from every doctor everywhere. It was way before anything that resembled a prescription monitoring program. But you had to wait till the pharmacy opened, right? So I'd be outside the pharmacy like I was waiting for concert tickets. And then every time I would go, and to this day, this will happen to me at a pharmacy. Every time I went and did this at the pharmacy, I thought I was going to get arrested.
Wait, say that again?
Every time I would go get one of these prescriptions filled at the pharmacy, I thought I was going to get arrested. I wasn't even sure what for. I thought that someone was going to come out from the back and say, "You saw 2 doctors this week." And I would have just like a panic attack going until I would get it. And if I go to the pharmacy today to pick up antibiotics for my kid, I get that feeling. Just from being there, I'll still get that feeling because I would just, but I couldn't stop. I could not stop. And every night I would go to bed and I would say, "I'm done. This is it. I'm not doing this." Well, if I was almost out of pills, I would say that. I was always going to finish what I had. I was never going to dump anything.
But see, you brought up something then. Your panic, you're not able to sleep all night thinking about it. I keep thinking that's part of the bipolar with her, but...
No, that's life under this circumstance. That is life under this circumstance. Obviously, you could be bipolar and you could have other issues, and I would never discount that for somebody. But life when you're in this state it looks a lot like bipolar disorder. It looks a lot like depression. It looks a lot like an anxiety disorder. You are just constantly wound, constantly, completely obsessed and preoccupied with this stuff. You know, yes.
I have another question. Okay, so you get help, not, an individual goes to get help, and they're clean, and do they, if they're on medicine to get through that point, like the antidepressants or whatever, do they, because of the recovery, and they're still in it, can they stop the medicine? Does that make sense?
Yeah, you have to. If you're on that type of medicine, if you're on a mood or mind altering chemical, you know, like, so in my case, it was pain pills. Now you gotta remember, I wasn't taking them for legitimate pain. If I'd have been taking them for legitimate pain, they may not have cut them. But I was using them, I was abusing them, I was using them recreationally.
No, I'm not making my question
You mean-
clear.
You mean other types of
Something
medicine?
else to help you,
Okay.
like if
You
you're on
mean like the
antidepressant.
methadone?
Oh, there's a lot of meds that are okay, guys. There's a lot of medications that are okay. You don't have to discontinue all your medications.
No, but that's what I want to know.
You don't have to.
no, I'm still
Just
not
the
making my
move on.
sentence
You
clear.
can stay on your antidepressant.
I think with our son, they had him on, what did they have him on?
So,
Zoloft
I
or
guess this is
something
my
else.
question.
Would there be a point in time
Or
where
you
you
can
could
get
come off
off
of that?
medicine.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
that's what I want to know.
Absolutely. You mean all medicine in general?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
There's a timing to that. You know, the
Alright.
question is there a point of time when you can come off medicine? Let's say you're on something for antidepressants or anti-anxiety, certainly. But there's a timing to it.
Okay.
And you want to do it with some support. And you
Alright.
want to do it in the right way. I don't care what anyone says, all these medicines have a withdrawal. If you just quit your Prozac tomorrow, that's a horrible idea. If you just quit your Zoloft because you decided to tomorrow without weaning down, that's a horrible idea. So we would say get some advice, get some support. You can definitely figure this out. Absolutely, you can come off it. You know, you can
You
definitely
just
come off it.
can't do it.
And I'm telling you, man, I'm going on the record and tell you, I don't care what people say. And there are people out there that are psychiatrists that would say, Rich, you're crazy. There is no withdrawal from that stuff.
Oh.
I've worked with way too many people. There is a withdrawal syndrome for whenever you just quit something like that. You
Well,
don't
I
do
don't know
that.
if there's a withdrawal syndrome,
But
but I'm a
there's-
psychiatrist, and he weans me
Yeah.
very carefully off of
Yeah,
something.
Right, you
he's
just
being
can't-
responsible about it. Yeah.
They're worried about seizures or
Yeah.
whatever else, but an antidepressant, because most of them have such, you know, minimal side effect
Yeah.
profiles.
Yeah,
The
excellent.
question is, do you want to take them off of that?
Yeah, the question is why?
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
blood pressure medication.
Yeah.
Once you start taking it, you know, a bit of
Yeah, that's the
homeostasis
question,
sets
yep.
in. Is a doctor gonna take you off of blood pressure medication? It costs $3 a month.
And I'm telling you,
Risk of
like,
stroke.
one of the ways, and I keep pushing this, and I know you guys have heard me say this 100 times, one of the best things you can do to find out about medication is that Talbot Recovery Med Guide. It has 3 columns. What it is, Talbot Recovery is a high-profile treatment center in Atlanta, Georgia, and they created this medication guide, and they put medication in 3 categories, A, B, and C. A is don't take this unless you absolutely have to. That'd be like pain pills. B is maybe under extreme circumstances with a doctor. C is no problem. This isn't going to affect your recovery in any kind of way. And that's where Prozac and Zoloft would fall. They're a category C drug. Which is the same as, you know, any benign kind of substance. So I will tell you though, when for me, because you guys got me talking a lot about these pills and stuff like that, I'm terrified of pain pills. I'm terrified of prescription bottles. I am physically terrified of these things. The place that they took me to, and this is where I have great empathy for people that are going through this, but it doesn't mean that the family is responsible to take this crap from people. But I gotta tell you, man, holy freaking weird what it did to me. And I think of like a pill, like a pain pill, as like a demon that is just, and there's this weird phenomenon to this day, 16 years later, if there's a prescription bottle sitting right here, if this is a prescription bottle, there is this freaking part of me that wants to turn it and look and see what it is. And turn it and read, does it cause drowsiness? And is it addictive? And what is this? And let me learn more about it. Do you follow me?
Yeah.
How freaking weird is that? that still pops in my head. And I don't do it. I don't do it. Just the other, well, this was probably about 6 or 7 months ago. One of the advantages I had, we talked a lot about my wife tonight and how she handled my recovery, but I will tell you one thing. She was freaking supportive of my recovery. She understood what meetings were, and I used her to help me through situations. And if I was ever in a situation, like when we would go to her mom's house, for example, I'd say, I'm going to steal all your mom's pills unless you do something about it. And she would go in and she would put away all her mom's pills and stuff like that. I would, if we were out, we were at a bar or something, or a restaurant, we got something to eat, and I was like, and I'd say, I was staring at this dude over here drinking this beer this whole time. Can we go? She was always down with that. She was always cool with that.
So you were addicted to pills and alcohol?
Yes. I don't do anything. I don't use any mood or mind altering substances. I don't. I'm addicted to anything I take that creates a mood or mind altering substance. So if I smoke marijuana, I'm smoking a pound of marijuana. If I take Adderall, I'm taking, yes, say no to pot. That's right. So just as recently as a year ago, we were at her mom's house, and her mom's elderly, and there are pills on the counter. There's like, and I said, Melissa, come here. Your mom's on a lot of pills. And she came in and she said, yeah, quit looking at them. And but what goes on then is when I say that, I now have incredible accountability. It's no longer going to have any power over me because I'm allowed to say it out loud. But understand, I'm managing that 14, 15, 16 years later. And I don't care what anyone says. People can say, well, that's rich. That's because you didn't work a good enough program. If you'd had a spiritual awakening, that would have been gone. That is not what's going on.
No.
What's going on is that this is deeply embedded in the pleasure center of my brain. This is like a pathway, a road that's been plowed in my brain that, you know what? I need to manage for the rest of my life. I need to manage this. And God forbid I break my leg. Here's the thing, knock on wood. I haven't even come close to having to take a pain pill. I have not even really been faced with a situation that was even close to that. But let's say something crazy happens. I would have to manage the heck out of that situation. Do you understand that? I'd have to have, somebody, there'd be somebody from here that I would be accountable to. There would be multiple people probably from here that I would be accountable to if I had to take pain pills. They are freaking diabolical. And I cannot imagine being 16 messing with these things. I can't imagine popping these things whenever I was 14, 15, 16 years old. When your brain is still developing. Mm-hmm. And, I was 31, and they took me down like a champ. And I knew my way around the party. Do you know what I mean? I was not naive. I wasn't like a Boy Scout who just stumbled into this stuff. So I have no idea how we got on that topic.
I have another question.
We have one more question, then we're going to have to get going before we all get blown away.
When you went to your mother-in-law's and you said out loud there's a lot of pills, did Melissa have to take them out?
No, you don't have to do that anymore.
Oh.
But what the idea is when you say it out loud to somebody else, you now create a different level of consciousness in your brain, and you know that you're not going to get away with it.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like, what am I going to do? Take one of these pills and be like nodding out on the couch? And I already told Melissa I was going to take one of these pills. Do you follow me? Like, I've totally blown my own cover. That's a key part of this. That's a really key part of this. Yes?
Just one more question. On those other slides that you had, there was, one of them was, I think it was like 6 rules of communication.
Yes.
That may be a new slide.
What's that?
Is that a new slide?
This is all new stuff, and I'll wait and do it.
Okay.
But this is all. It really didn't fit with what we were talking about tonight.
But it was good.
Yeah, this is all new stuff about, and then this communication stuff. This is all about how to talk to each other, about how to deal with your loved one's addiction. So once you identify who needs to be on the same team, you have to figure out how you actually talk about it. Rules for communication regarding this issue.
That is.
Yeah.
A lot of wisdom.
Plan to discuss this on a regular basis rather than during the crisis. Talk about it every week or something like that. It's not about winning. Who cares?
Amen.
It's not about my way or Melissa's way, if we're talking about our kids and what we're dealing with there. It's about how do we move the needle on this recovery process. Try to stay on task. Be prepared to compromise. Be careful where you get outside info. Beware of toxic people. In other words, don't bring Aunt Emma into the conversation if Aunt Emma is just going to make things worse. Do you follow me?
Okay.
My mom says that we should da-da-da-da. That's not really necessary. If it's going to upset the apple cart, be kind.
I love that one.
Be kind to each other. That kind of thing. Put away your phone. That seems like a very stupid thing to say from such a brilliant therapeutic group. But put away your phone if you're talking about something important. Put your phone up on the counter. What's your tone of voice? What's your body language? Avoid blaming somebody. Listen to learn, not listen to respond.
Wait, say that one again?
Listen to learn, not listen to respond. Listen to learn is if you're talking to me, I'm actually listening to you and I want to know your point of view. Listen to respond is as soon as you start talking, I'm thinking about what I'm going to say to you.
Mm-hmm.
Two different ways to do a conversation. Listen to learn. I'm very interested in what Joni's going to say. I'm not just interested in what I'm going to say to her.
Okay.
Elicit support if you need to. Get somebody else in the room. Always close the conversation with a next step, even if it's small.
Give an example, please.
So my wife and I are talking about my daughter. We're kind of figuring out how we can help her and stuff like that. She's getting some counseling and working through some things. And, if we're talking about that, we're kind of debating it and what should we do. Like the conversation doesn't just end. We end with, even if the end is, okay, we're doing this again next Wednesday.
Okay.
We'll check in and see how things are going, and we'll talk about this again next Wednesday.
God bless you.
Or, do you do that, Meg? Yeah. Or maybe the thing would be, okay, we're gonna sit her down and we're gonna talk about she's going back to the stair. I'm making all this up. Do you follow me? But there's
So to have closure, kind of?
it's to have closure, but also you got to remember that this is all. I believe in the idea that you build a wall by laying a brick. And so it's like, even if we don't have everything figured out, we got at least one thing we're going to do over the next week or over the next 2 weeks. You get that?
Got it.
It's not like, what are we going to do? We don't have everything figured out. They're not ready to go to rehab. We're not even sure how bad the problem is, but we do know that we got to get them in to see a therapist. So we're talking to him about seeing a therapist on Friday.
Got it, okay.
That kind of thing. Always close with some plan. That's the most important. Well, that's not the most important, but number 1 and number 12, so important. Close with a plan and talk about this in between the problem. Don't be talking about this only when the person is going off. Have the conversation when everything's going well. It's counterintuitive because you don't want to talk about it, and it sucks. It's not a fun topic. But, all right, this is one of the best groups that we've had in a while. I like this.
I do too.
And I'm telling you, you guys got to be talking to your group mates or your colleagues that come to group and stuff like that. My new jam at Favor is group. My deal is I can't see people individually. I just don't. There's not enough of me. But I will do small groups. So if you guys have topics, if you talk and everybody wants to learn more about depression or people want to learn more about anxiety or whatever, I'll do a group like this. I like small groups. So, all right.
You're really terrific.
Thank you. I like her a lot. I like her a lot. Bring her back. Yes.
Do more about communication.
I will. I'll do more about communication in general, not even just related to like addiction, because it can only help.
Well, all of those.
Yeah. Yep.
Pretty-
So, and I'm going to do this again for the bigger group. So if you heard this already, please bear with it if we go through it in more detail. All right. Let's close this thing out. Let's all safely get home tonight. If we can get a moment's silence for those still suffering with this disease and for the family members brought into this no choice of their own, followed by the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. All right. Good deal, guys. Thank you. Yes.
You are wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you. All right.
Mine is too.
They know that.